Welcome back. I hope your brains haven't been fossilized, because we're going to spend a bit more time looking at fossils and what they tell us about the history of life on Earth. If we look at the concept map, we've already looked at fossils. We're going to look at the history of the Earth, the geological timescale, and the Cambrian explosion to see how they all work together to give a picture of what life was like in the past. We started off with this example of a timeline starting 4,600 million years ago and ending now, and we looked at how conditions on Earth changed and also when the very simplest cells first arose. Over the past billion years, lots of things have changed. The continents have moved. The temperatures have gone up and down, leading to tropics and ice age conditions. Sea levels have risen and fallen, and the levels of different gases in the atmosphere have risen and fallen. And this has affected the animals which could live in those particular conditions. Right at the top, 550 million years ago, there was something called the Cambrian explosion. And that was when life on Earth diversified, became very, very different, starting the development of the wide variety of living things that we see on Earth today. If we have a look at this picture, this is showing us the eras: Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. Here are the pictures of some of the fossils found at the different depths, and these are the names of the different periods. You will notice that in the Cenozoic era, there are also different periods, but you don't need to know the names of those. Now, looking at a geological timescale, we looked at this particular one. Before 550 million years ago, we call the pre-Cambrian time, and then the three different eras: Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic, with pictures of all the different animals and plants that lived on Earth at that particular time. The pictures give you an idea, and if you have a look and you compare the living things here with the living things there, it's very, very different. And the next thing is, well, why did it become that different? Okay, so if we look purely at the Paleozoic era, if we look all the life forms here, right at the bottom, mainly invertebrates. And the invertebrates were first found in water, and then they later moved onto land. Then, if we have a look at the end of the Paleozoic here and the Mesozoic here, you can see that vertebrate animals started appearing. You had fish-like structures, then reptiles, and the fish, of course, were in the sea, but the reptiles then moved onto land. And in the Cenozoic era, the dominant form of life was mammals. So the Cenozoic era is called the age of mammals. And mammals dominate the Earth today. Next question. How do they ask questions on this? Are you expected to know all these names and which animals are found where? And the answer is no. You do not have to memorize the geological timescale. You need to know the names of the three eras. Any other information you would be given a geological timescale with some information on it, with perhaps pictures, and you would have to use the source material, use the picture in order to be able to answer the questions. So questions on this are mainly interpretation questions. Okay, so first question, quite easy. What does MYA stand for? And obviously, million years ago. Then the second one is have a look, and when did the Triassic period start? So you would have a look here and you would say, right, this is where the Triassic period started, and you will be able to pick up the answer. So, answer, MYA is a million years ago, and the Triassic period started 251 million years ago. Then, next one also can be answered simply looking at the geological timescale. Which era and period are we living in? And we look here, they talk about humans, and that is the Quaternary period and the Cenozoic era. Remember, the spelling of Cenozoic can vary. Don't let that upset you. Then, other questions could be asked where you would have to calculate. It says, how long did the Ordovician period last? So you would have to find the Ordovician period, which is here, and it's from 488 to 500 minus 440, and that gives you about 60 million years. When you have to read it off the graph, they'll always give you a little bit of leeway of a couple of million years. Then, questions involving interpretation. In which geological period did the amphibians first appear? Sometimes you would have to look for pictures, but here they actually tell you. The first amphibians appeared in the Devonian period. And then where did the first flowering plants appear? You would look here, and that would be in the Cretaceous period. Then, in which geological period have we done that? The amphibians first appeared in the Devonian. Then, what do we term the event that occurred 543 million years ago? And that is, right at the start, that would be the Cambrian explosion. Okay, next one. During which period did the mass extinction occur that wiped out the dinosaurs? And that was at the end of the Cretaceous, the extinction of the dinosaurs. So that would have been 65 million years ago. And then discuss one theory that scientists put forward. Okay, so that would be the Cretaceous. And then one of the theory that scientists put forward, which would be the asteroid impact, volcanic action, or climate change. And you would need to not just name the theories, but actually explain a little bit about how they would have led to a mass extinction. Let's have a look at another type of question that can be asked. In this diagram, you are shown a section through rock layers with different types of fossils like dinosaur bones, fish, mollusks, things like that. And these are on the side of a valley. And one thing you can pick up straight away is that if you look at those common fossils, which are index fossils, remember, you find them in the same layer on the opposite side of the valley. These ones, no fossils. We don't know why. Let's have a look at the questions. Which layers of rock are probably the same age? And that would be rock U and Y. And why? Because they have the same fossils in them. Sometimes you might be asked to add on to that question, why do you say that they are probably the same age? And then you would talk about having the same fossils. Then, W and X, that's those ones there, are also sedimentary rock layers, but they don't have any fossils. What could be the possible reason for there being no fossils? First of all, you must remember that 99% of living organisms don't form fossils. Fossils are only formed when conditions are just right. So the most common explanation would be that the conditions for fossilization weren't good. Another answer you could give is that the organisms were microscopic, so you couldn't see them, or the organisms were soft-bodied, and we know that soft-bodied organisms generally don't form fossils. Okay, next question. State whether the following statements is true or false. First one, older fossils in deeper rocks. I would say that's a good bet. True. Second one, the deeper the rock, the more different types of fossils. That is obviously false. Next one, the fossils above, which is in the picture, indicate that the area was once an inland sea. Fish skeletons, mollusks, shells. So that gives us a good idea that it was an inland sea because those are aquatic organisms. And the next one, the older organisms that fossilize are more complex in nature. Most definitely not, because when we looked at the geological time scale, where were the simplest organisms? The simplest organisms were at the bottom, and the more complex organisms were near the top. Next question is use a flow diagram to describe how fossils have been formed. And this is one of the things that you do need to know off by heart, the steps of fossilization. In this particular example, you're asked to do it as a flow diagram. And a flow diagram is a series of statements separated by arrows. For example, and this is the first one given to you, the organism dies and sinks to the bottom of an inland sea. So, what happens next after the organism has died? Soft parts decay, covered by sediment. The sediments are compacted into rock. More sediments are laid down. And important point for a fossil, the plant or animal remains must become mineralized over many, many years. If they're covered by sediments and they're not mineralized, they actually don't form fossils. Then, at some time, the surface would erode and the fossils would be exposed so that we can find them and wonder about how they came to be. Now, before your minds get too muddled, we need to take a break. See you later.